Thank you, Ed. He said, how long is the introduction? I said 20 minutes. Introduction is quite time, but yeah, that was wonderful. Thank you, Ed. I have the great pleasure now of welcoming up Pastor Columbus Smith. Those of you here in Palo certainly know him, others as well. And I called him and asked him to come here and give us some opening words. Pastor Smith.
Is there something going on in there, actually? The other night, I didn't watch the State of the Union address, but Alexi think, but my image was firmly implanted in my head as the representative from Texas, the gentleman from Texas, Al Green stood up with this powerful stance with the king outside. And I learned a few, and as I think about that moment, I learned a few things and a few lessons that I feel will inspire us. The first thing is he was absolutely clear on what to stand for. The reality is, I know that many of us are worried about the messiness of history, but I believe it is imperative at this time that we clearly understand history, what oppression looks like, what marginalized look like, what systems and structures look like. Because the reality is, if you just base your opinion on what is in the current news cycle, you can be fundamentally deluded and directed. So as he stood there with his years of wisdom, remembering the civil rights movement, remembering Jim Crow, remembering sharecroppers, remembering that those people in the state in Galveston were told that were free, weren't told that they weren't free. He said, I have to stand in this. He was also not afraid to stand by himself. We live in a country where we want everybody to have everything, but in this age and time, we need to have the courage to stand by ourselves. I am so encouraged by Senator Becker and our supervisor saying California is going to have to stand by itself on some stuff. And that's all right, but we need to be willing to stand by ourselves. But as I come to a close, I remind it of this poem. It's a poem that was written by Pastor Margaret Leavenworth, and it's titled First They Came. First they came to the communists. I did not speak out because I was an communist. Then they came to the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came to the trade unions, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came to the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me. One of the greatest gifts of a democracy is that we believe in the mutuality of the humanity of each person in our democracy. We should not fall into patterns where we become so self-interested in our own interests that we do not stand for the values of our communities. As an immigrant to this country, I always remember the sign at the bottom, Statue of Liberty, talking about sending their masses. And as I sit here today and as we talk about what needs to be done next, let us never become so self-centered and so self-directed that we do not stand together for the values we create. It's not the key.
Thank you, Pastor Smith, for those words. My name is Josh Becker, and I'm honored to serve my second term as state senator for the 13th Senate District. Thank you. Representing San Mateo and Santa Clara counties. Thank you all for being here today. This is a critical moment for our state and our democracy, and I appreciate your commitment to spending your valuable time with me. And I'm happy to host this and happy to host more. But I have to ask you to do two things for me today as we get it. First, I'm going to invite us all to take a deep breath. I learned from a colleague of mine that when you're stressed, you really become shallow, even holding your breath. And with everything that's been happening over the past few weeks under our current president, I think it's safe to say we're all experiencing higher levels of stress. So the science tells us that in order to relax the fastest, most efficiently, you take one deep inhale. It's a very specific method. One deep inhale. Then when you think you're full, you take one last sip, and then you release it with an audible sigh. Okay? So I'm going to ask you to try to do that with me together. Let's do it together. Okay, we're going to take one deep breath. Thank you. Do that with me. Okay. Now, I feel like I'm going to use that technique a lot this coming year. So now that we're a little more relaxed, I want to ask you one more thing. Let's strengthen our community here by getting to know each other. So I'm going to ask you to turn to your neighbor, ideally someone that you don't know, and just share, it'll be 1 minute each, just share who you are, what city you're from, and then share either hobby outside of work, or what's your greatest passion right now? What's on your mind right now? No right answers, no wrong person comes to your mind. 1 minute. Turn to your neighbor. Please begin. Thank you for your participation.
I agree.
Connection is something that's going to get us through the next few months, the next few years. So thank you for doing that. Reminder, if you have questions, please hold them up. Isabel and Miles in the back of the room from my great team will come and collect them. There's an ancient Chinese saying often referred to as a curse, that you live in interesting times. Yes, these are certainly interesting times. And it requires a deeper level of thinking, and one that's predominantly focused on solutions. Because we know what the problem is. Many of us here, just talking to many of you beforehand, feel like our fundamental democracy is at risk. The fundamental kind of breaking apart of the civic institutions, what we all learned in school. So that's why we're here. It's not just about drilling. I know you all have certain things you care about. It's not just about drilling, not just about civil rights, not just about reproductive rights. Of course, all of that. But I'm talking about ignoring the courts, right? Breaking the fundamental checks and balances that have characterized our democracy for the almost last 250 years. So it kind of feels like sometimes that democracy's hanging by a thread, right? And a bit of an attack on human caring, attack on California. It feels personal in many ways. And the challenges around fundamental rights, but also vital programs that puts at risk the progress that we've tried to achieve. Unelected billionaires running amok. The offensive, disgusting Ukraine press conference of my friend Nadine North, who's done so much for Ukraine, but that hurt all of us who saw the values of America as the leader of a free world. Questioned loudly on display. We may not, I know all here don't believe it, but many agree with probably what Dan Rather said. I can't remember a time when I saw a world in America this unsteady, adrift, corrupt, incompetent. But you know that. You want to know what are we going to do about it? And what can we all do about it? To protect you, to protect our farmers, to protect our kids, our seniors, our planet, to protect so much more. Well, I can tell you a lot about how we're going to protect our planet. And I've got colleagues here who are also going to talk about how we're going to protect ourselves on the home front. The reality is that Trump's administration's budget cut proposals and mass firing of employees will have real consequences here in California. Just one example, you know, I've done a lot on wildfire. Many of you were on our wildfire town hall. I chaired the budget subcommittee where we doubled the size of our Cal Fire firefighters. We built the largest aerial firefighting force in the world. But many of you don't know that 57% of our forest land is in federal jurisdiction. And that's under the jurisdiction of the U.S. Forest Service. They're responsible for wildfire mitigation, fire removal. But the Trump administration just fired 3,400 people from the Forest Service. That's going to increase the wildfire risk here in California. And that's just one example. We're withholding $25 billion that was committed to California for very specific climate programs, for charging infrastructure, for arches, our hydrogen hub, many things that were done in a bipartisan fashion here in California, and they're holding back that money. I just want to be clear, I have no problem with cutting programs that aren't working, and working to trim the deficit in a way that makes sense. Our own governor, Gavin Newsom, has limited 3,800 positions that were vacant. Okay, the fire department limited vacant positions as another 6,200 in this budget, with a savings of $1.2 billion for our state. But it has to be done in a measured way to avoid unnecessary collateral damage, extreme hardship. I don't know about all of you, but on LinkedIn, I feel like every day I see a post from someone, a scientist, someone who works at fisheries, and they're saying that this was their life's work, and then they just got fired with no notice. It built DOE into this beautiful machine, really leading our clean energy economy down be dismantled. And I just want to say one thing, if you hear from other folks about, well, we need to do these cuts, just remember this, that defense spending dwarfs any underspending in this country. Defense spending is almost $1 trillion a year. So all non-defense discretionary spending is 3.1% of GDP. 3.1%. It's the lowest since 1971. It's been going down every year. 3.1%. So here's some of the things that I've heard in what you submitted that you're concerned about. Some are concerned that is this country becoming oligarchy, unelected billionaires, concerned about Social Security. I was talking to somebody earlier about that, about Medicare, certainly concerned about ignoring the courts. Thank you, Judge Cordell, for telling me about the op-ed today. Chip Nisko, I want to read that. But the proposed cuts in the Social Security Administration, one of the greatest anti-poverty programs in our history, would have devastating consequences for our seniors. They're talking about cutting 7,000 people, 10% of the Social Security Administration staff. And those means local field offices will be closed, resulting in increased fill times, people becoming sicker, or hungry, or dying when checks don't arrive, or disability hearing is delayed just 1 month too late. The budget cut goals of $800 million. The CBO is saying that's going to have to cut Medicare and Medicaid to reach those levels. So it seemed that these, with these policies coming in play, we'd be disheartened by what is happening. And that's why I sort of hope, remember that every problem is fixable. When we come together, we're focused on solutions, focused on open doors that are always available if we look hard enough. So let me tell you some of the things we're doing to address these issues. And by the way, we're happy to do more of these and bring in some of the experts. I did a day-long symposium at Stanford Law, my alma mater, just a couple weeks ago. And we had 4 panels, perhaps on civil rights, on immigration, on climate, on reproductive justice, each with a Stanford Law professor, each with one of my great colleagues from the legislature, each with outside experts like Abdi Sultani, who was the head of the ACLU in California. And we went through in each of those areas, what are the threats and what are the legal issues at stake, what can we do about them? And in all that, we had our Attorney General Rob Bonta, he came for lunch, and he spoke and said that they're ready. Right? They knew this might happen. And our Department of Justice, they thought brings $1 billion budget. Yes, we did give them, we have actually $25 million specifically for kind of to spruce up emergency situations, but they have $1 billion budget. They were ready. Some of the things they did, they announced a multi-state lawsuit to challenge the federal funding freeze. Federal funding freeze that would devastating impacts on California with 22 other states. They challenged an executive order limiting birthright citizenship, arguing it violates the 14th Amendment, and they secured a temporary restraining order against the enforcement. of birthright citizenship. We got to applaud for that. Announced increased funding for immigrant legal aid organizations and public awareness campaign. We did $25 million too for these legal services organizations because their funding is being cut at the federal level. We need this representation. Reformed California's environmental protections, pledged legal defense in healthcare, reproductive rights, and LGBTQ protections against potential federal restrictions. And this is analogous that in the first term, when Trump rolled back some of the clean air regulations, what California did is it brought together a bunch of the leading automakers and worked together with them and reached agreement to have strong emission standards to protect air quality. So you can spend decent over there. So when I was in electric vehicles. When the federal government tried to end DACA, California sued the legal battle to protect dreamers and the right to live, work, and contribute to our state. When Trump pulled out of the Paris Climate Agreement, California doubled down, passing policies, I'm happy to discuss in detail, passing policies to double down our clean air leadership. When the administration attacked the Affordable Care Act, California actually expanded health care access, ensuring more residents could receive the care they need now. And let me tell you, there's lots of different ways for all of us to take action. How many of you read the book, Tim Snyder, the Yale historian's book on tyranny? Who of you read Tim Snyder's book? Okay, look how it goes. So one of his very first chapter says, do not obey in advance. He said most power given to authoritarians is given freely. And so I went into that and met with senior leadership to express my severe displeasure about the announcement time right after the election of eliminating fact checkers. Of moving the security and content teams to Texas so they'll be free of bias. Let alone the nonsense about masculine energy. Nobody knows what that means, but actually it's I think those of us the most sort of pernicious because a lot of entrepreneurs look up to Mark Zuckerberg. So when he says something like that, what does that mean? How are they going to treat their companies? But just so you know, I'm not obviously just taking action on one of those things. As your senator, as chair of the Bay Area Caucus, I'm working on ending unsheltered homelessness, restoring public safety, on building affordable housing. These are the things we're also doing, of course, every day. And we're just getting warmed up. Today, we'll hear from a couple of my good friends and leaders about what we're doing at the local level. And I'm going to come back and after we do the Q&A, I'll have some remarks at the end. But I just want to remember that the fundamental tenet, I was talking to my wife last night, the fundamental tenet of populism is mothering, right? Mothering. We can't let ourselves be divided into us and them.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we can't